Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course. You good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave. On a beautiful April the 9th, 2020, Rondo Deportes, Big C, will be taking some time to take care of some good old boy business down south. And I really wish everything is well in the sports universe. It's all fair in love and war. He'll be back in the saddle soon. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, just say Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. Also, I want to make sure that we give out our Veterans Crisis Hotline. Man, everybody's pausing. Everybody's pausing because of coronavirus pandemic. But we shall get through this with the help of science and also the help of God. I know that Mike Pence, Vice President, and Donald Trump also were saying something that I hadn't heard them say really ever, as far as I can recall. They were saying that there's some people who are going through depression. And if you know anybody going through depression, that the president has made sure that you can reach out to different social media and get some help. Now, we've heard that before, but they didn't say what social media. I just believe that when the president starts saying that people can reach out and get help, I know Big C Sports has been saying it for almost a year now, but it's nice when they at least give you a number so that people don't wonder what internet website. I want to make sure that the Veterans Crisis Line and their experience in helping veterans and their loved ones is 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you are online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get some help. And I know that's important. It's so important that even POTUS talked about that today. And so I really appreciate Big C, how we've been doing that. Just want to do our part. Everybody has their own way of doing their part. Also launching a real estate show, TV show in the spring of 2020. Of course, up to Gavin Newsom and lifting the shelter in place. And also the goal, simply recruit 100 real estate brokers that want to put property listings on TV. Just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. Sports teams do it when we have sports. And you can let TV work for you too. I know some of my friends that do real estate. I've been in the business about 2 decades now, and they're doing things online because you can't go out and do the open houses, but you can do things online, and that's fine. Keep doing the online, keep doing whatever you got to do, but if you can have people congregate around a TV event, then that also might make it a lot more easy for people to get out there and do their thing in the world of real estate. So looking forward to doing that in the spring of 2020. Also, just a caveat, I was talking on KGO Radio here today in Northern California, San Francisco. Pat Thurston, really want to commend her for doing a fine job. And she says I can call in any time, so that makes me feel good. I think she does an excellent job out of San Francisco broadcasting from the KGO studios. And she was also talking about the coronavirus, pandemic and how it's affecting people. And I was asking her a specific question about something that the Surgeon General, Jerome Adams, had talked about. And it's so important to me. And I was asking her, have they heard anything at KGO in San Francisco about what it is about the African American community that has people hit hardest, according to the scientists and the doctors, when it comes to dealing with this coronavirus pandemic? And she said that she doesn't know. She asked me the question, and I told her that I did a show on it this week also about people taking their medications, not displacing science for faith. I know a lot of that happens in our community. And so I really appreciate her thoughts about that. And they're going to reach out more and find out more about what they can do. And that's on KGO News Talk 810 in San Francisco, the best news talk station in the United States of America. And I just thanked her for that thought, because I want to make sure that I can do my part also on the Big C Sports Show. And she had mentioned that Van Jones also this week. Van Jones does a lot with CNN, and he was also talking about what it takes to keep people safe. And he reached out to a lot of African Americans on his own program. He had a message to Black Americans. The same thing that Big C Sports had said when we were doing this show this week. Van Jones, great commentator on CNN, his message was take your blood pressure medication, take your diabetes medication, eat healthy, exercise, and take serious this social distancing measure. I think that's important. So we're all trying to figure out, it's more important than the game. I know some guys just want to know who won a game. There are no games on right now, except for some NBA players that are going to do a three-point shootout over the weekend, and that's fine. To me, I think it would serve their grandparents better if they did what we're doing now, a social reach out to our community. We've seen enough basketball dribbling up and down the court. Again, everybody has their own opinion. But I was talking to Pat Thurston, who does her show at noontime, I believe noontime to about 3 o'clock in San Francisco, and she lamented what happened with Van Jones, that he said the same things. We got to make sure that we advocate for ourselves. Oftentimes, I listened to some African-American voices growing up that wanted to play the sports, football, basketball, baseball, whatever it was, people wanted to do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, I oftentimes heard people say, well, it's the white man that won't let you do something, or that white people don't care about what's going on in the black community. And when you read the Kerner Commission from 50 years ago, maybe you could say that's, but that's a pejorative statement. And you cannot lump everybody in that same boat. At the same time, sports will reach out to people, especially for us African Americans. We can use sports to get that medicine across, if that makes any sense, as opposed to hoping that people watch the news. Louisiana was hit hardest of late with the coronavirus pandemic for African Americans, only making up 33% of the population of the state of Louisiana. I have some friends from Louisiana, but 70% of the coronavirus cases is coming from 33% of the population. That has to hurt. It has to make you wake up. And I remember there was a movie the great Spike Lee produced, and there had a guy in there named Radio Raheem, and he had this moment in the show when he said, "Wake up!" and he was screaming at the top of his lungs. And I want to say it was Do the Right Thing, but I could be wrong about that. I think it was Do the Right Thing. At the same time, I want to do the right thing. Spike Lee did a movie about that. And when we reach our African American brethren, and some people say, why are you talking so much politics and news and contemporary information on a sports show? I've never tried to appease dumb people. And I mean that. Some guys just don't have an idea that we even have this pandemic. And Van Jones, he lamented the same thing. We heard, and I heard a very intelligent friend of mine tell me that African American, he said, brothers aren't getting this disease, right? And I said, that's dumb. Everybody has access to getting the virus. And he said, well, you don't hear any black men getting it, do you? This was about 2 weeks ago. I know he feels very stupid because right now he's one of the smartest men that I know. But he was intellectually vapid when it came to paying attention to science. He could tell me about sports. He could tell me about news and the financial markets. But when it came to something that a lot of people have put their families in jeopardy, he was intellectually vapid. And I told him, I said, that's just dumb. At least Google science and listen to what the scientists are saying. But again, that was 2 weeks ago. Maybe his eyes have opened a little bit more. But if that's the case, then why are so many of us still being stricken with that? And I hope that dialogue is just like raindrops. For every flood, there was a raindrop first. So the flood of information comes with a raindrop, often that comes after a thunderstorm. So if we can rain enough information on people so that everybody can get wet with information and wet with knowledge, maybe we can also bend that curve in the African American community, because it's been, it's just amazing to me since the Kerner Report. A lot of the times we can be our own enemies. That machismo that runs sometime in our community, that thinking that we're cool and nothing can happen to us and we're going to pray our way into health, wealth, and wisdom. And that to me is a fallacy. So I thank Pat Thurston out of KGO News Talk 810 in San Francisco today. And as we had that conversation, she's going to follow up more, and I'd like to reach out to her again and just have a dialogue about what we can do to get people to wake up. Like the great Spike Lee wrote in the movie back in the day, I was thinking it was Do the Right Thing, and he said, wake up! That was Radio Raheem. We all got to do our part. And I want to do my part with that too. Also, today on CNN, and again, I appreciate what Van Jones is doing. He's doing his part. When Van Jones was talking, he didn't say anything about, can you believe that we're on strike with NBA basketball's on pause? Can you believe that Major League Baseball is on pause? Do you think we're really going to have the NFL this season? What about college football? He didn't talk about that. He talked about how to keep our grandparents safe, our grandfathers, our grandmothers, our mothers, our fathers, our family members, wives, girlfriends, daughters, sons, ourselves. That's important. I have a friend of mine, we do real estate together. He lives in the Bay Area. He's a Caucasian guy. And he's I'm not going to go into his personal information, but he doesn't take his high blood pressure medication. And I said, man, what are you doing? And he said, hey, bro, I'm going to be all right. Now, I gave the story yesterday how I started taking my medications about 5 years ago when I almost passed out. I was in great shape, had about 10% body fat. I worked out. I walked 30 miles a week with carrying 20 pounds of weights. And I was working out so I felt great and I looked great. People would say, man, you look good. And it's nice when someone says, you look good, you look nice. We all want to have that hubris, that we want to have that hubris massage. We all want to be told, you're good looking, you're beautiful, you're handsome. And that's great. But when I almost passed out, there was no one there but me and some people in the store. So it made me start taking my medication. I shared that message with my friend. In fact, I'd even told him that message a couple of years ago, but it hasn't changed him. He loves sports too. He's a big sports guy. But I just hope that we can all do our part. And part of one of the athletes that I'm very proud of is on tonight, CNN, Magic Johnson. I don't know what they're going to talk about because I haven't seen the show yet, but I put it on my DVR. I know Big C, you and I always talk, and I ask you, what can we do to get our African-American brethren, and white guys too, but we know they get the best health care, and they have over 400 years been given the better side of the table, if that makes any sense, in every spectrum. Not by God, but by man-made laws, draconianism and imperialism. Not because God endowed people with that opportunity. That's man-made. But at the same time, if we're well-read and we know enough, then we're part of the problem if we remain silent. We don't want to tacitly consent. For guys that say, why do you talk so much about politics and news on a sports show? One of the best basketball players in the history of the universe, 5-time NBA champion, Magic Johnson, is going to be he's actually on CNN. And the great thing about Magic Johnson is that we know he's won 5 NBA championships. He also won a college national basketball championship with Michigan State back in the day. They beat the great Larry Bird. And there are times when people will never hear of Magic Johnson outside of a sports show. But the great Magic Johnson? Magic Johnson is also on CNN tonight. And I appreciate the fact that he's on CNN tonight because he's going to talk about some things, and I don't even know what he's going to talk about, but he's on with Dr. Sanjay Gupta. And the main thing that I love about that is that's one of the rare figures. I think he could go anywhere in the world and people would know who he is. And when you think about that, he's an American retired professional basketball player, an amazing businessman, former basketball operations with the LA Lakers. He played point guard for the Lakers for 13 seasons. Imagine that Kobe did it for 20. Magic 13 seasons. And that's what people think about it. They think about Magic Johnson, the great sports guy. But Magic Johnson has been asked by CNN to come on to their program and say some things that Big C and I talk about all the time. You got to reach people where they are. I know there's a lot of times where even Christ, Jesus, was a teacher. He went about the villages teaching, not preaching. He was a teacher. I'm not trying to draw that comparison. I'm saying we have to wonder and even ask out loud what Dr. Martin Luther King told us back in the day when he gave the I Have a Dream speech. We all know that if we know something and we don't share it, then we tacitly consent to the problem. I want to make sure that because I'm aware of what's going on in a lot of communities of color. We've been spoon-fed sports. We've been spoon-fed entertainment. We've been spoon-fed oftentimes the worst food. You can go into predominant African-American communities in major cities all over this country, whether it's Los Angeles, whether it's New York, whether it's Dallas, whether it's Miami, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., no matter where you go. Oakland, San Francisco, and a lot of our communities of color, for the most part, you don't see access to a lot of grocery stores. You see a lot of fast foods. You can go out and buy fast food before you can find a nice grocery store that gives you fresh fruit and vegetables. So that also affects in how we deal with hypertension. Oftentimes we eat a lot of foods with a lot of salts, and oftentimes that leads to hypertension. And doctors will say, well, that's hereditary. Well, you can also change it. And even if you can't change it through changing your habits, we have to have access to medication. We have to have access to science. Science is going to save our lives more than praying. And I do know that when I talked to Big C about that, and he was saying that sometimes I thought being flippant about it, that he was saying that football is bigger than religion in the South in some communities. That people will get out of church early so they can go see the game. And I thought, well, maybe he's just joking. But now when I hear that Louisiana is hit hardest right now, outside of New York and what's happening in Detroit, but Louisiana, 70% of the cases are African American, and they were saying that the population is only 33%. So I believe in that what Van Jones is talking about. I believe that what Big C Sports has been talking about. I appreciate Pat Thurston from KGO News Talk 810 in San Francisco, what she talked about. I was on her program just for a moment. And I appreciate what Magic Johnson, I believe, is going to speak about tonight. Because there are people who are the hardest hit with this pandemic that won't even watch much news. They'll turn it off. I still see at times where professional basketball players want to get on a program that's going to entertain people because they're going to shoot a basketball. That same time they could use to elucidate what's going on with this pandemic, because it might keep their family members safe. And to me, that's important. I know I just have to bring that up because I am inspired, and I'm also looking for people to be on that same message, to give that same message, to follow that yellow brick road so that we can stop thinking about the games right now. There's a game called life. And when I hear from science that is hitting our communities the hardest, are we really practicing the social distancing? I'm a very social person. I speak to almost everybody I know, especially in business. When I'm at home, I'm more reticent. I'd rather sit back, relax, and watch the news or listen to the radio station. But I know if I'm not playing in the backyard getting dunked on by my son, that's what I'm normally doing. But I just wanted to make sure that history will put in context those who did and those who did not try to save people, even if it's just with our voice. I remember I was a young boy. I was 8 years old. I was visiting my grandmother and my grandfather in Oakland, and they owned service stations This is back in the 70s. And I'll never forget, I was in her hallway, and she had, cooked some good food and some good foods that we had. And I remember how I just had a good time eating the food. And the music was playing. My grandfather always watched sports and news, and he always sat in his chair. And I will never forget, and I was 8 years old. She touched me on my forehead, and she said, "There's just something about your voice. I love hearing you speak." She edified me when I was 8 years old. I didn't know what she was doing, but they were in the church also. And so the reason I feel very confident, no matter where I am, with my oratory, I'm always trying to improve that, but I was anointed by my grandmother when I was younger, as well as, my mother and my father. But there's something about a grandparent that can touch you on the head and speak some things into existence. And now we have the number one sports show in the universe. That's what I'm saying, and I know my grandmother, God bless her soul, she would agree with that, called her Grandma Curry. But I'm saying what she told me that day in the hallway in Oakland. I was a little boy. But you gotta speak life into people. And I was not raised to just be a shut up and dribble kind of person. So I love the sports business. But if Magic Johnson can do it, my heart is so happy that he's doing it, that he's going to be on a news show, and they're talking about pandemics and why it's affecting the African American community. I don't know what they're going to ask him. I haven't seen it. But I believe that they will. And I believe that there are people who will see Magic Johnson tonight on CNN News that would not have seen him on CNN News if they didn't reach out to him. I hope that makes sense. But because he's going to be there and has been promoted, there'll be people who are sports fanatics who may just tune in. And maybe some of the information that they hear will help save their lives or the lives of people that they love, because we got to get on top of this thing. I don't want to sit by with my eyes closed, my head in the sand, pretending like it won't happen to us, like one of my knucklehead friends told me, who has a master's, and he's in finance, so he's very smart, but when it comes to pandemics, he probably gets an F, and he knows who he is, and I hope that and he's also on medication. Isn't that something? Here's a man that takes his medication, but he doesn't believe that African Americans can get coronavirus. Isn't that something crazy? He's a very stout church girl also. He goes to church religiously. And it's unfortunate that a lot of us are being hurt by that. So I hope that our sports brethren can reach out and do something that's going to help us stay alive and just be healthier and not take a virus back to our homes and infect people that we love. To me, that's so important. That's more important to me than giving you a score. There'll be some NBA players on Sunday. You can watch them shoot a basketball while the house is burning in the black community. It doesn't make any sense to me, but some people are in rote mode, and that's all they know. I wish them well. I would love to see Tiger Woods would have been starting the Masters today. And again, I can't make anybody come out and do anything. People don't have to, but here are people who are worth almost $1 billion. And they have a huge following. Tiger Woods might be the most recognized athlete anywhere in the world, in the history of the universe. Maybe even more so than Muhammad Ali. Because Muhammad Ali came at a time we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the sports center or the local media outlets and the podcast all over the world. It was pretty much ABC Wide World of Sports. Well, we still have ABC Wide World of Sports, but now there's so many other ancillary news outlets and sports outlets that people pay attention to. So Tiger's been really built up. I remember when Kobe Bryant tragically perished in a helicopter crash in Los Angeles because his pilot was flying in the fog, even when the LAPD had grounded all helicopters. He perished because the pilot either suffered for a lack of information or used ego to try to go through. That's just my opinion. Everybody has their own opinion. But if someone says, do not drive or do not fly because the conditions are too dangerous, don't go ahead and do it anyway. That to me is so important. I just want to make sure I get that out there. I would love to see Tiger Woods, who's made nearly $1 billion in the 20 years that he's been a golfer. And he has such a pulpit that he can speak to people that show up and cheer for him in mass. When Tiger Woods started golfing, it got more African Americans to play golf than at any other time in the history of the universe, at least in the United States of America. But he hasn't said anything about what's going on and how we can hopefully keep our communities safer. I understand people don't have to do anything. They don't have to do anything at all. Van Jones didn't have to do his thing. Big C doesn't have to do his thing. I don't have to do mine. Magic Johnson didn't have to do his. But we have people who are in a burning house and we're watching the game. Doesn't make any sense to me. I just wanted to do my part. I know that's important. I'm not going to try to browbeat anybody. It's like I was told growing up. If you're going to complain, you better have a solution. Don't just complain. Bring a solution. And that's what I want to do with my sports show every day. I want to make sure I do that. And sometimes the universe will show you that you're doing the right thing. I'm not saying that we have to be first at anything. But I know in the quality of Big C Sports Podcast, and I say this to sponsors out there that sponsor people, when you have Mike Pence stand up today at the White House, I believe it was about 6:56 p.m. Eastern time, and it's amazing how they gave that same message. The United States coronavirus cases, over 16,000 people have passed away. There have been 450,000 positive tests. And when I wonder, am I doing the right thing? I can't please anybody but myself sometimes. But to me, Big C, it's another thing of, I've heard of pastors say, here's another demonstration of a great principle that's difficult to explain, it's difficult to diagram, but nevertheless, it is a principle that if you believe in something and you're doing the right thing, then others will follow. So when President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence acknowledge people who feel depressed, that they can reach out to social media, that they should be aware of to get some help. They didn't mention a number. They didn't mention a website. And we give out that number and website all the time. Well, for the knuckleheads that would get on me, especially some of my friends from the Bay Area, and say, man, you guys talk too much politics, are they going to say to Mike Pence and Donald Trump that they talk too much sports because POTUS called together some commissioners, 12 commissioners, to say we got to get the guys back out playing? We got to get sports started up again. No one accuses POTUS of talking too many sports. No one says that. But smart people can talk about different things, but use both sides of our brain. I want to give out that number one more time before we come up on the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and hopefully they can get some help with that. And so I really appreciate the way that message is being out there. When POTUS does it, Big C, and Vice President Mike Pence do it, then I'm proud to say that Big C Sports has been doing it for almost a year now. And it didn't take a pandemic to do it. It's the right thing to do. If we can help anybody, let's help people who have a need. To me, I think that's important. I'm going to get onto a few things later in the second half about some sports. I know the Masters would have been starting today. I talked about that coming up this week. Even last week, did a tribute to some great golfers. Yesterday, I did a talk about some of the great African-American golfers in this country. And many were marginalized and not allowed to play, but they stuck through anyway. And I appreciate that. Some things that happen in sports. You have Mark Reynolds says he's going to retire after 13 years in Major League Baseball. The Yankees, the most valuable Major League Baseball franchise, over $5 billion estimated by Forbes magazine. A source in the Los Angeles Rams will have wide receiver Brandon Cooks traded to the Houston Texans. And it's amazing that I know everybody has a hope that we can beat this thing. And I know that people want to talk about sports too, and we will. We'll do everything that we can. I want to do what's called the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. When I come back, we're going to talk about more sports, and believe it or not, some pro teams that are actually into the clergy. We'll be right back in just a moment. All right, we're back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. And you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Speaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Launching a real estate show in the spring of 2020. Of course, I'm not obtuse. It all depends on how safe it is for people to go in to do open houses. But I really do have some great things coming in the form of real estate. It's a great time to refinance. We even have people that can buy your property for cash if you're looking for that too, up to several $1 million. And I'm going to be announcing that soon on the Big C Sports Show. Everybody has their own situation. I want to make sure as I get into what I was talking about and how sports and politics will mix for smart people. Think about this. Now, this just came out in the Associated Press. NFL football team dealing with the New Orleans Saints. You know how we were saying that Louisiana's hit very hard and there's people conducting services, church services? And, you know, everybody wants to put their head in the sand sometimes. Even when I was saying I want to ask 1 million pastors all over the world, in fact, all over the universe, to ask for God's providence in a cure for this pandemic. I do believe in faith and I believe in science. I believe they can exist, they can coexist. They're coterminous like your right hand and your left hand. They can coexist. Now, this is painful to say, but there's hundreds of emails that were detailing the New Orleans Saints' efforts to conduct damage control for an area's Roman Catholic Archdiocese amid the clergy's sexual abuse crisis, and they said it should remain shielded from the public. A court official recommended that Thursday, which is today. Now, we talk about things that go on in society. Of course, we ask people to pray. No one should ever be preyed upon, especially by the clergy. Are you kidding me? But we know, oftentimes, when a priest does that, they just fly them to a different part of the world with impunity. Well, and people can Google this. It came out by the Associated Press. They're saying that, I mean, it's embarrassing to say it, but people need help. They're saying that some people involved with the Saints, very, very high up, have said they had nothing to do with it, they have nothing to hide, and that the team does not object to the emails being made public during a later stage of the litigation. Why hide it now? What do you mean later? Sometimes things go away when people are paid off. The Saints acknowledge giving church leaders advice on how to handle media attention surrounding the 2018 release of a naming more than 50 clergy members who were credibly accused of sexual abuse. Now, who says sports and politics don't mix? Does sports and religion mix? People can Google it. This is real. This is bigger than who won a game. This is bigger than how big, strong, and fast somebody is. No one should ever have to face any type of garbage when they deal with anyone. The clergy, and to say that we have someone very high up in the ownership with this organization are saying, well, we don't mind that you bring it out, but can we just bring it out later? Let's do it during later stages of the litigation. This happened 2018. How much later they want to wait? So everybody knows. Everybody they can look into it themselves. I don't want to indict anybody. I know one of the owners that passed on back in 2018, and everybody has their own thoughts. So to me, the more we take intelligent people and we shout out what's wrong, then we can make things better. Because a lot of the churches are empty right now because they've been told shelter in place. But if you're going to a church and you're being assaulted by clergy, I mean, who doesn't want to talk about that? Would you send your kid there? That's why they shouldn't say keep it quiet until later. People need to know now. This thing happened 2 years ago. Who knows what's happened to other people? But the people can go on to it and read that Associated Press story. I just want to make sure that what I do with Big C Sports is making sure that I don't put my head in the sands. I never want to do that. I never want to do that. I never want to be that kind of person that I knew of something that could have helped people, but I chose to be like a lot of our athletes today. Well, I don't want to say anything, man. You know, you don't want to say anything. People might not like what you're saying. If you say something, you might make some people upset. Well, who cares if people get upset? Sometimes we need to get upset. I get upset. You know, I'm not always pleased with how people deal with me. I've been accused of being what they call hubristic, egotistical, loudmouth. I've been called those things by people that said they like me. So everybody can be called something, Big C. And maybe sometimes they were true. I think one time I went and got some advice from my mom. We talk every day. And I got some advice from her, and she told me I was dumb for saying that. I said something that was very dumb. And she told me, she didn't say, well, son, you know, that's not nice. She said, that's dumb. Why would you say that? I was younger, but I remember she scared me straight. If anyone ever saw there was a movie when I was growing up. It was called Scared Straight. And I wish they would show it more on TV now, because it showed what happens inside the penitentiaries when you don't listen to your parents at times. At least if your parents are decent and give you good advice. If you don't listen to your parents, you're going to listen to somebody, but they normally have a handcuffs and a gun and a badge. And there are things that we need to listen to. And so I remember my mother having us watch the movie Scared Straight. Maybe some of our clergy can watch that movie if that story out of New Orleans is true. But they talked about what happened in the penitentiaries when you're in part of the criminal justice system. And like my pastor says to me, I don't care how many jails they build, he's not going. Just don't do wrong. Don't break the law. You never have to see one. I know anyone can be falsely accused and all that garbage. That's why we shout down. If you're crooked law enforcement, they need to be shouted down. I know they have internal affairs. I have family members in law enforcement also. They know what I'm saying. But we got to keep people safe. But the clergy, come on. That's painful. I just want to make sure that we can always be willing to be a snitch. One more thing I want to get into before I talk some more about the Masters that would have happened today. There was a thing that I heard by some of my knucklehead friends growing up who are no longer friends, just knuckleheads. You know, big physical strong, want to go to the gym and work out 10 hours a day, and just dumb. But they had this thing that some of them learned to hustle for a living, you know, that snitches get stitches. So as I said to one of my erstwhile friends, and he's a big sports guy, has everything to do with sports. You know, God bless his soul, he's passed on. I was told that about a year ago. But he was out there hustling, and I hadn't seen him in about a good 15, 20 years, maybe longer than that. But he used to hustle. And people know what I mean, New Jack City style. And I asked him, how many people is he hurting when he's out doing his thing? And he said, man, if I don't do it, somebody else will. I said, that's dumb. And I remember he told me that he had $100,000 cash. How much you got? I remember he told me that. I was trying to help him get a job, a decent job. But that's, you know, whatever. God bless his soul. Nobody's perfect. But those things my mother warned me about when she had us watch the movie Scared Straight. And there was a time when I talked to her about some things, and she said that was stupid. She didn't sugarcoat it. And I've never been in trouble in my life because I had parents who were honest with me. And I chose to do the right thing. It's a choice. And that's why I'm asking so many of our African-American brethren, even our white brethren, to speak up and help people if we can. And the coronavirus pandemic, it really bothered me when I heard Surgeon General Jerome Adams say that our people are the most affected by it. Yet it's people who look like me that say, oh man, you know black people can't get that disease. I mean, that was up to 2 weeks to a month ago. And I said, that's dumb. Like my mother told me something I said many, many moons ago was dumb. But it was the right thing to say to people. And I just want to make sure that we all do our part. Some of the great things about the Masters that would have happened today. Again, Tiger Woods would have been able to go out and play. I think I read an article where he was doing a putting green against his son and his son beat him in putting. So maybe he would have lost it at the Masters too. I don't know. But sometimes our kids, they get to the point where they can do things better than us. But it also, in just being real about things in life, on the eve of what was supposed to be the Masters, this happened yesterday, a lawsuit was filed against the great Tiger Woods and his caddy. And I would love Tiger to really just take an example and see what the universe is offering you. You got a chance as the most well-known athlete in the world to come out and do a PSA about coronavirus, what's going on, social distancing, washing our hands, taking our medications, speaking to people that buy tickets, and they change their whole weekend when you're playing in the Masters, Tiger. They want to see how you're going to play. They want to see if you can pick up the golf club and if you can come down to 18th with the lead or tied for the lead, and the whole world is watching. Yet you got 15 majors. You can be that same person that can score another championship by doing what Magic Johnson's doing tonight, by doing what Van Jones has been doing, by doing what Big C Sports has been doing. Reach out to the people that clamor to the TV set when you're playing golf. A lot of the Caucasian guys that you have spent your time with, they've already been involved in that sport. But there's a lot of people that wouldn't come and clamor to you if you fell off a cliff. A lot of them showed up to put a microphone in your face to say, I can't believe you were doing what you were doing. They didn't come to your defense. I mean, you know that. But you can come out and you can say some things that people might listen to, and we can help bend that curve like Dr. Fauci says. Steph Curry did it. He and I have the same last name, Steph Curry, Golden State Warriors, the only unanimous NBA basketball player in the history of the universe. That's the great Steph Curry. He had Dr. Fauci on a program on Instagram. They had over 50,000 people listen in. And they talked about how we can keep our families safe. And Tiger Woods, you're in that same position. You're not an intellectually vapid person. You went to Stanford. Your father's military. And I know that if we can do just a little bit, that people might listen. Magic Johnson is doing it. You don't have to do anything. You're worth over $1 billion over the years, and that's fine. But anyone can be susceptible to it. I just want to make sure that I do my part with my pulpit to get people to pay attention. So Tiger Woods, his caddy, is being sued, and Tiger's being named in the lawsuit. And I wasn't there. I'm sure the PGA could release tape of what happened. But think about this. To be sued by a fan that says your caddy pushed him out of the way and you fell and hurt yourself, the golfers are there to golf. They're not supposed to be fans out there on the course. And I know they have a part roped off where you can walk through, and the groundskeeper will keep the fans away. And if you get in the way and someone nudges you to the side and you trip and fall down like an NBA guy's flop, that would be a bad precedent for a judge to rule in that guy's favor. Unless he was physically punched, like Mike Tyson punched somebody, then to me, throw this garbage out. It would be like a football fan suing a player for being pushed out of the way on the field, or a basketball fan suing a player for being pushed out of the way when you're on the court. That ruling will affect everybody. Whatever the judge is going to do, and I hope Tiger turns around and sues that man. Everybody, this is what I want to say again. And when you think about Tiger, and you have a platform that's a lot bigger than mine, even though with all the money you had, I wonder the story about the talents in the Bible, you got to use your talents for more than just shooting a golf, playing golf. That's just my thought. You had a Florida man file a lawsuit against Tiger Woods and his caddy, claiming that he suffered injuries from the caddy pushing him out of the way doing a Valspar championship that Tiger played in 2 years ago. 2! Auspiciously, the lawsuit is brought right around the week of the Masters. And again, everybody has their own right to sue anybody. But I just want to say, I think his caddy at the time is Joe LaCava, and said that he intentionally shoved this person. And then, of course, lawyers get involved. The guy by the name of Mark Steinberg, the agent for Tiger Woods at Excel Sports Management, did not immediately reply to comment. And LaCava said he had no comment. Now, how can a lawsuit that's probably a fallacy, a false lawsuit, how could that be in the news, yet there's no talk of the great Tiger Woods talking about how to keep people safe during this coronavirus pandemic? Even if you were to get someone like Dr. Fauci, I believe Tiger Woods is more well-known around the world than Steph Curry. In the universe, I would say more people know him. I'm not saying he has to do anything, but you got to realize that same mainstream media, predominantly white media, that tried to bring you down for doing the same things that their great golfers have been doing throughout the history of the world. We know that. But none of those guys were ever thrown under the bus the way you were. Now you're being sued, maybe falsely sued, and you have a chance to come out and speak to people who are mostly affected by this coronavirus pandemic, and they look just like you. Why not come out and have a PSA? Because if people were taking this all serious, there would not be as many people hurt by that. I'm not saying Tiger has to do anything, but I remember that moment when he hugged his father when he came off with the 1997 win, and to me that was a very poignant moment in the world. And there are only so many times that the universe will give us a chance to do things to make it better for everybody. I just want to see my part, and I'm doing the best I can with it, and I will always keep doing the best I can. In London, England, F1 racing circuit puts employees on furlough until May due to this coronavirus pandemic. So even guys that want to race cars, think about it. In London, England, nearly half the season is already altered by the coronavirus pandemic. You have the Formula One said yesterday that it will furlough half of its staff until the end of May, and senior executives will take a pay cut. So people are losing money all over the world. But you know what they're doing? They're acknowledging what's going on with this pandemic. Now, if you have in London, England, the F1 calling off last month's Australian Grand Prix and has postponed seven more races thus far this season. The Monaco Grand Prix was canceled outright. There's just a lot of things that I would like to call on people who are well known to do their part in making sure that we get the attention of our grandparents and our parents, just to do our part. We got to do it. I believe we can. I believe we should. Tokyo, Japan. The Olympic flame is taken down to discourage the public from trying to view it. It's at an undisclosed location. Remember, it took them a while to cancel the Olympics. They pushed it off until 2021. But it took people talking about it. I can't believe you're going to have athletes from all over the world fly in to Japan, and we have this pandemic, and it took them a while to say we're not going to have it. So I'm glad they did it. It was taken off of display in Japan. It's not clear where they have it, but it arrived in Japan from Greece on March 26th, I believe. And so now everybody's doing their part, except for some of our most well-known athletes in the world. And if they have, then I haven't heard it. But it's just great when we can get our sports brethren to step up the way Magic Johnson is tonight on CNN. Former Major League Soccer player helping Spain to fight the coronavirus pandemic, helping secure gloves, masks, and medicine. Now, maybe people are doing things behind the scenes, and that's fine. But if you have a large speaker, when I was a young boy, we would play our music loud at times, and people could hear it as entertaining. Sometime the neighborhood was something a lot of us tend to do, Big C. But we try to make it so everybody could hear. So when you have Madrid, Spain, Tony Devel has a different routine than most Spanish soccer players during this coronavirus pandemic, because a lot of athletes are doing their part also to make sure that they can get some help to giving gloves and the mask. I mean, Spain has struggled with the coronavirus. I think they have more than 140,000 confirmed cases, nearly 14,000 fatalities, and the country's been on a tight lockdown. And they have some people who play sports that are stepping across that line that dumb guys say you shouldn't step across, mixing sports and politics. And they're hoping that what they're doing is going to help some people. And I believe it will. I believe we can't just leave it up to the news stations. Again, talking to Pat Thurston today, KGO News Talk 810, and we have this mantra. How can we get the message out? You got to get the message out over and over and over again. Even in Hollywood, we know the great Tom Hanks, he and his wife, they were down in Australia when they tested positive for the coronavirus pandemic. Well, Hollywood star and Cheers actor in the movie White Man Can't Jump, actor Woody Harrelson, there's some talk that he was blaming the 5G towers for the coronavirus pandemic, and he has over 2 million Instagram followers that trust what he's saying. I still say trust science. I've heard different things everybody has their own conspiracy story, but to me, that could be somewhat dangerous if it's not founded on science, just like some people believe that they're going to pray their way to health that's based on religion. And so they refuse to take the high blood pressure medication. A friend of mine that works in real estate, he had a stroke. About a couple of years ago, I said, man, how'd you have a stroke? You're a good-looking guy. He's in great shape, former football player. And he said he stopped taking his medication because he felt fine. And he woke up one morning and he couldn't use one side of his body. And his wife was able to call 911 and get him some help. And here's a guy that loves sports too. He's a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Played sports in college. Everybody has to do their part. I just want to make sure that I keep doing my part with big sports. And everybody can do a little bit of something. You don't have to be out there on an island by yourself. We can all do a little bit of something and make things better for everybody. And I will keep doing that as long as God gives me breath, because we're more than just guys that can shut up and dribble. Again, that Magic Johnson special on the town hall on CNN is already underway, but I put it on my DVR so I'll be able to see it, later this evening when I get in. United States national soccer team discrimination case is pushed back to the month of June. It's based on equal pay, that women have to sue to have equal pay. How does that make any sense? We know it makes sense because a lot of times men have taken advantage of them and didn't pay them. The trial date for a gender discrimination case filed by members of the U.S. women's national soccer team is being pushed back to June 16th. Players for the team filed a lawsuit against U.S. Soccer last year under the Equal Pay Act and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Lyndon Baines Johnson signed that act into law. He didn't do it in the church. He did it in the White House. It's important. They allege that they have not been paid equitably compared to players on the men's teams and have asked for more than $66 million in damages. That's a lot of money. But if the men who don't win anything are making a lot more money than the women who win a lot, you would think if gender pay mattered, and equity mattered, that the women would make the same kind of money. The trial date was originally set for May 5th in the U.S. District Court in Los Angeles, and then in April 20th, there's a pretrial conference. It was moved to June 1st. Both sides sought grievance from the court in light of the coronavirus outbreak. California Governor Gavin Newsom, who's doing a fantastic job in my opinion, he's issued a stay-at-home order in the state to deal with this global pandemic. And I believe even in Illinois, I believe they issued a curfew for liquor stores not to sell liquor past 9 o'clock. Well, who's buying liquor past 9 o'clock? If you're an adult, of course, you got to buy that in the daytime. Everybody, whatever they got to do to relax and get the edge off, they can do that. And I know that's important for a lot of people. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Speaker.com and an app that I love called Google. Our Alexa, just say Google. Our Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. And I really appreciate the way things are going. Also launching a real estate show on TV, looking to recruit 100 real estate brokers to put your property listings on TV. McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. Real estate people can do it too. It's really a great way to showcase your business. When you think about the pandemic, it has put everything on the pause. The New York Yankees, according to Forbes magazine, the most valuable franchise in Major League Baseball at $5 billion. That's estimated by Forbes. And you would think about it. For the New York Yankees, baseball's most valuable franchise, valued at upwards of $5 billion. That's up 9% over last year and 47% more than the number 2 valued franchise in the universe, the LA Dodgers, according to Major League Baseball. They're worth $3.4 billion. That's a lot of money. The Yankees are second among all sports franchises in evaluations to the... How about them Cowboys? The Dallas Cowboys, owned by Jerry Jones and the Good Old Boys down in Texas. They're worth a $5.5 billion according to NFL ranking. Dak Prescott, you better sign your contract before everybody takes a pay cut with this coronavirus pandemic. It would just give Jerry Jones a clue to say, hey, because of the pandemic, we can't give you that $35 million. What did they cut you down a lot more than what you're turning down already? I'm sure that you'll get that money. I mean, a lot of people live on a lot less than $35 million. So the New York Yankees call the Yes Network broadcast Forbes and Sports Money television show. That's a lot of money for the Bronx Bombers, and I'm sure they'll be right back in the swing of things. And hopefully they can invest in some cameras like the same way the Houston Astros did, Big C. It didn't hurt them in trying to win. Boston Red Sox, they are coming in at number 3 with $3.3 billion according to Forbes magazine. Came out today. The Chicago Cubs, take me out to the ball game, Harry Carey. They're worth $3.2 billion. And the team that plays in the most beautiful ballpark in the universe, the San Francisco Giants, worth $3.1 billion. That's a lot of money in the city by the bay. There's a restaurant in San Francisco called the Stinking Rose. I'm just doing my own PSA for them because it's a Stinking Rose, but that's some of the best garlic I've ever had in my life. In fact, I had some lamb and some garlic on the side. They had more garlic on the plate than lamb. I ate so much garlic, it came out of my pores for about a whole week, but I felt so healthy. I love the Stinking Rose. It's amazing. And San Francisco Giants, San Francisco City by the Bay, home of the Stinking Rose, worth $3.1 billion. New York Mets coming in at $2.4 billion. St. Louis coming in at $2.2 billion, with Philadelphia coming in at $2 billion. Now the team, the poorhouse for Major League Baseball, the Miami franchise, comes in at $980 million. That's a drop of $20 million. I mean, everybody has money in the world of sports. Kansas City's worth over $1 billion. Tampa Bay's over $1 billion. Cincinnati over $1 billion. And the Oakland A's $1.1 billion. I know everybody has an interest in money and how a lot of people have been laid off and furloughed, and I really hope we can get our society back on track. We really need to have that. I would love making sure that people stay healthy, that we're not sycophants, that we don't have our head in the sand, especially for African Americans. Let's make sure we get that message out there. If you can, watch the program today on CNN with the coronavirus townhouse. It's a program. It's just, to me, it's so important. Everybody has a chance to see it. It's so important to me. I want to make sure that I at least do my part. And it's going to be on CNN tonight. In fact, it's already on with Magic Johnson. As we always say, keep your family healthy. Wash our hands. Do whatever we can to take this serious. We will get through this. But we got to trust science. No matter what I say, no matter what anybody says, trust science. We can get through this. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. And he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe? And as I know you always say, we got to read, we got to trust science, we got to have faith. Faith is fine. Our sports brethren, I really appreciate the smart sports guys, the guys that are prescient enough and are willing to use their platform to come out and give a PSA and how to stay safe. Because if a lot more of us do that, all we do is help people, maybe even somebody we love. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, you can follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.